Well, folks, it's finally here. The FIDE Candidates Championship 2024. It's a 8-player round robin, double round robin, which means there'll be 14 rounds. And simultaneously, the women's candidates is playing. First time ever they play at the same time. It's also the same 14-player double round robin, 14 rounds. Long tournament. And the winner of each, in the ladies section, the winner will play the women's world champion. And in the open section, the winner will play the current world champion. So this is a big deal. And it's been a long time in coming together. And this is one game from round 1 as white, Fabiano Carauna, the number 2 rated player in the world, American, against black, Hikaru Nakamura, who needs no introduction on social media. He has well over 1 million subscribers here on YouTube, as well as a huge multi-million subscriber presence on Twitch. So let's see how it goes. Now, the reason why they're having the same country play at the beginning, in case as the tournament drags on and 2 members of the same country play each other, there might be some collusion and one might let the other one win to help him move up. So if you do it early enough, there'll be none of that chicanery. So let's get to it. As white, like I said, is Carauna. Black is Hikaru. So we're going to go through it here. It's going to be a Sicilian. Pawn takes. Knight takes. This is just a classical Sicilian. Knight. Knight. Now here's where Hikaru goes off the beaten track. Now I am no opening expert by any means. A good buddy of mine is always on me that I should be studying my chess openings more to be a lot better player. I don't know. I just don't have the patience or the time for it. But Hikaru goes E5. Now, knight C3 is a standard move, as well as A6, the Najdorf. He plays the pawn right away. Now, Hikaru explained in his video why he did that, because there's a lot of preparation involved with these players to go to the tournament like this. And, of course, Carauna and Nakamura have played each other well over 50 times. They're very familiar with each other, so they're trying to get what they call preparation. And there's no increment. In other words, there's no additional time on your clock every time you move. So he thought this would put Carauna a little bit of time trouble, and it did, making this move. So Carauna had to spend a lot of time figuring it out, which he did. Bishop B5. Knight blocks. Knight F5. A6 finally. And B to A4. Now, what would happen if, say, knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, A takes? And that is losing for white. It's just too greedy. Let's go back. A6, bishop A4, B5, bishop retreats, knight comes here, bishop to G5. Now, off screen, I have my computer's the Stockfish 11, which isn't the strongest Stockfish, but certainly for players like us, is more than adequate. And it has about a 2/3, a half a pawn advantage for white. Small advantage. Black's a little busted up. That backward D pawn here, I really don't care for that much. I have back pawnitis. As you can see, something that's plagued me my whole life, and backward pawns are hard to defend. But let's move on. Bishop takes, the knight. Pawn takes. Bishop B7. Now, if you're Carauna, what do? You're out of your preparation because you didn't prepare for this. And you're going to have to waste a lot of time, which Carauna did. Now, Nakamura is notorious for not getting in time trouble. Bishop takes, white castles. So what do you do here? Black castles? Do you play E4? Do you castle? Do You play b4 to hit the knight. There's a lot of alternatives here. And Hikaru, of course, picked the best move. e4 takes up some key squares here, as you can see. Here and here, it's good to control those squares. And later down the road, maybe you can push. It's good to control squares. That's part of the name of the game, especially in the opening. Now, knight takes e4. It looks like, oh, he's throwing a piece away. Knight takes. Oh, no. He's down a piece. Rook to e1. Well, now you cannot move the knight because of the pin. And you can't play pawn here because the bishop and the queen are guarding the square. Of course, he knew that, of course. Castle, rook takes, and Carl picks up the pawn. So now the material is even. We've got opposite color bishops ending. Notorious for being drawn. Now, Hikaru isn't the kind of guy that says, well, you know, I have black against Carauna, one of the top players in the world. Carauna, by the way, and Nakamura, who's playing in this game, are the top two players picked to win this tournament. So it's just odd that they're in the first round, but that's the way it worked out because of their nation status. He's thinking, okay, it's not the end of the world if I draw. Hikaru is always playing to mix things up. He doesn't like boring games and draws, and he just loves to mix it up. He says it's for his content on his channel. I'll take that with a grain of salt. I think Hikaru really wants to win this. In fact, Magnus Carlsen, the former world champion, maybe the greatest player that ever lived, said Carauna and Nakamura have the best chance of winning the tournament. Now, he also said this is Nakamura's best chance to win the candidates, which puts you in for the world championship, which is a huge freaking deal. So we go rook b1, hitting the bishop. Bishop comes back, of course. Queen d5, trying to get that battery. After this pawn here, you're trying to freeze the rook because we have this battery coming in. It's very interesting. The computer has got a small advantage for white, and we're on move 18, and already Carauna, as white, is in time trouble. So it took so much time trying to figure out how to do the opening because Carl completely caught him off guard. Rook c8, and believe me, Carauna is more than good enough to figure it out. It just takes time. Queen b7. That was a move Carl said surprised him. So what do you do here? I mean, do you try to save the pawn? The pawn on a6. What do you do? There's two key moves. d5 was the move the computer picked. Bishop e5, h5, and Carl picked one of the top moves, rook here, going after the f-pawn. Queen takes pawn, rook takes pawn, rook d1. Now, remember that backward pawn I was talking about, the black d pawn? And look how ugly this is. This is the only criticism I have. Look how ugly this is. Now, granted, white's pawns are disconnected, but he can have the bishop take good care of all of them, where those pawns for black are just hanging out there. This position is ugly to be sure. d5, excellent move. I guess there's an old saying I heard years ago when I was a kid. If you can't defend the pawn, push it. And rook b4. Believe it or not, the vast majority of these moves are the computer's moves off screen. These guys are so good. Now, what would happen if took that free pawn? It's free, right? Pawn takes. Bishop takes check. Rook takes. Rook takes queen. That's the end of it. It is black back. After rook b4, bishop c3, just to harass the rook. Bishops, even knights too, they just harass the crap out of rooks. Rook takes the pawn. Now, this is a move that is not the #1 move of the computer. Rook to f6. Rook to here is the #1 move on the computer. And Carl took a few minutes to do this, and now the computer's slowly changing back and forth with a move Caro made, a move that took Carauna completely by surprise, which is very, very unusual for players of this caliber. Maybe you can stop the video and figure out what move is black Caro made. So if you want to figure it out for yourself, it's something I wouldn't have saw. And the people that were doing the commentary, which are grandmasters and very, very strong players, didn't see it either. And that's rook takes f2. Now, what happens? What happens if king takes the rook? Check. King goes here. Bishop d1. King h1. Bishop e5. And it's going to end up being a stalemate. Or I should say a perpetual. Because when this pawn moves, there's check here. This king comes over. There's check here. White can't get out of it. It's perpetual check, which is a draw for you people that don't play. So let's go back. Rook takes f2. Of course, Carauna is smart enough not to take it. He played rook takes. Queen to h4. Now, looking on the computer, there's more than a point advantage for white. And he is down a pawn. Granted, but the white pawns, there's 2 on the queen side with no opposing pawns. This looks really ugly, but it's drawable. Queen to d3. Rook to f6. g3. What would happen if queen takes the bishop? Check. King moves. Check. Rook takes. Mate. So those 3 pieces aren't so free. After g3, the queen goes to b4. King comes up. Bishop, just to put him out of the way. I'm not sure where he could have put him. I think Caro had mentioned he had thought about going from here to here. Rook to f5. Now, even Carauna said that was he called a lazy move. And that pretty much blew his advantage that he has. The computer likes rook to b5, rook to d7, but Carauna went rook, and that pretty much sealed the deal after this for a draw. Rook takes, bishop takes, queen f3. Now, you can still lose this as black. You have to be careful. And that's the problem when you have ugly positions like this. You have to play precise chess and not make even a small error. Because white is ahead by a pawn, and there's 2 pawns on the queen side going to march down and get another queen. So you could be a little lackadaisical to a certain extent, whereas black can't. So a lot of people with bishop g7, I don't know what they would do, but Caro made the excellent move, queen e7. And that stops the rook from coming in, which he wanted to do. Very good move by Caro. a4 brings the king up to guard the bishop in case he wants to move the queen. And this is something that he did, and I was really surprised. Computer likes bishop d5, h4, rook d2 maybe. I think he was a little, not on tilt, but maybe he got a little more comfortable than he should have went. He went a5, which blew the entire little advantage he had to 0.00. And you non-chess people, that means the game is drawn. It's exactly tied. For a lot of reasons, the pawn's on a dark square and the bishop can't guard it. So let's go through the rest now. Here's a great move. Great move. Let's see if you can find it. That Caro did. Again, stop the video and see if you can find Caro's move. And that is Rook A8. Rook A8. And what happens is, if Queen takes, Queen will check. King say moves here. Queen takes. And you're going to get a perpetual out of this. Really good play on a Carl's part. Rook to D5. Rook to A7. To bring the rook up, solidify everything, help guard that F2 square. Rook B5. We'll just play out the last few moves. Queen to D8. Rook D5. Carl moves the queen. Now, what would happen if you played A8? He would go A6. And that is really, really bad, because what would happen is, if Rook takes, Rook comes here, and now you have everything bearing down here. So, of course, he didn't do that. Queen C7, H4, Rook takes, Queen takes, Queen B7. We'll just go through the last few moves. Queen to D8. Now, we're on move 38. And according to the rules, you cannot offer a draw before move 40. And we're on move 38, so they play a few of the next few moves. Check. King H6. King H3. Queen E7. This is dead drawn. Queen C4. Queen E3. And this is where they agree to the draw and move 41. So I think I won't go as much as say how Caro dodged a bullet. But it was a very ugly position. The players like you and I that are just average players would look like it was totally lost. That's why these guys are playing in the candidates and we're not. But Carl took a shot, took a chance. He rolled the dice, and it didn't hurt him. So there you are, a game from round one of the FIDE Candidates Championship. The winner goes on to play for the World Championship. This is currently being played in Toronto, Canada. And I live in upstate New York in the Eastern Time Zone. So this is one of the few times a huge major tournament is in the same time zone with myself. Usually they're in Europe or Asia, and you have to watch them at weird hours or watch them after the fact and not live. So there it is, round one. For those of you that enjoy chess as much as I, this is the premier tournament of the year. And until next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.